One of the big reasons supporters give for an auto industry bailout is jobs, and so many of them. But not just jobs at the automakers. They're all the independent car dealers. They're the people in advertising. They're the people who work in restaurants and stores in towns where the factories account for the big chunks of the business. And on top of all that, they're the parts and computers and all the rest. One study found that a complete collapse of all three automakers would result in 3 million jobs lost just in the next year. But we're not talking about the complete collapse of all three. That's not what we're talking about. The truth might not even be that simple, and the numbers may not be that bad. Let's get context and perspective on all of this as we bring in Jim Lacamp, our friend from RBC Wealth Management. Jim, good to see you.
Good to see you, Shep.
What do they want exactly?
Well, what they want is two things. They want the loans, and they want the loans without the qualifications of improving and upgrading their fleet line. But what they also want is to buy time. They want to buy time for the global economy to heal so that they can continue to work through their reorganization plan. The problem with that concept is I don't think that works. First of all, I think the global economy is going to take a long time to heal, longer time than this 25 billion or 50 billion will cure. Secondly, this is a business model that's not really working, and it's not really competitive. I mean, you're talking about employees that have total compensation packages on average of the big three at about $70 an hour. That compares to U.S. employees of Honda, Toyota, and Nissan at around $50 an hour. So you're looking at a big difference in compensation packages for people to do the same job. That leads to the question: can we be competitive? And it's yet to be proven that the U.S. automakers can be competitive in a down economy.
Yeah, and you know, the question might be, would they qualify for a loan? You know, I feel bad for the CEO of Ford and all of his employees and all the people affected. I mean, who doesn't? You'd have to be a horrible person not to.
Right.
But the fact is, right. I know a guy who owns a lawn maintenance service, and it may just be a lawn maintenance service to everybody else out there, but this guy's like, I had no way to know when I bought extra lawnmowers and hired more people. I had no way to know that the economy was going to flat fall apart. Where is the government for me? I need the government to save me, or my family is not going to get Christmas presents. We're not going to be able to afford college, and my building is going to collapse. His horror is just like their horror. It's just they think they should be able to be bailed out by all of us, and he knows better. How many jobs are we really talking about here?
You bring up a couple of very good points. First of all, the auto industry and the airline industry have always been boom-bust industries. In good times, they do very, very well. In bad times, they do very, very poorly. But they always seem to plan for it very poorly. It's almost if they're always planning for good economies, yet economies always slow down. Now you're talking about industries that, are they really making sense over the long run? Now you're talking about 355,000 employees directly in the auto industry, in answer to your question. But if you look at the spin and the press that's going along with this, they've raised it to 1 million. Now they've raised it to about 4 million.
And I heard one congressman say 3 to 5 million people overall. I mean, it's very confusing.
Yeah, and look at what they're counting. They're counting car wash employees. They're counting parts suppliers. Now, come on, we're not going to be riding horses. We're still going to wash our cars, and we're still going to need parts for our cars. I'll tell you another problem with the auto industry, too. It's yet to be seen if we make fuel-efficient cars that people will buy them. Remember that the gasoline prices are dropping rather rapidly, and people are stretched right now, and people are getting laid off of their jobs. Are they really going to go sell their car immediately and go buy a more fuel-efficient car just because it's available? You have to be very careful about some of the assumptions that you're making in a bailout package here.
You know, they seem to want us to believe that if we don't give them billions and billions and billions of hard-earned taxpayer dollars, if we don't do that, that everything is going to collapse. What's the truth here about what happens if there simply is no bailout? And by the way, we're getting email from people saying, stop calling it a bailout. And when it is not a bailout, I'll stop calling it that. This is a bailout.
Well, there's three things they could do here. They could give an injection like they did to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The shareholders would be wiped out, and I think that's a horrible idea because you'd be rewarding really a bad business model. Secondly, you could give them a loan, but if you do that, you really need to say, hey, how are you going to be competitive? Are you going to rework your labor contracts? Are you going to streamline? What's going to make you more competitive than Honda, Toyota, or Nissan? Finally, you could let them go under Chapter 11 bankruptcy. if you go under Chapter 11 bankruptcy, it's going to have some negative impacts. The Federal Pension Guarantee Corp is going to have another onus on it. You're going to have retirees that lose their benefits and their health care. That's a real problem. There's no real simple answer here, but the fact of the matter is, you said it right before, this is not the only industry that's hurting. There's a lot of industries that are in real trouble here, and you can't bail them all out.
Well, I'm sure it was very confusing for our viewers who just all of a sudden saw the guy talking on the right-hand side of the screen. But what's going on there is that this hearing has begun. They haven't done anything yet. They're just doing introductions and that sort of thing. I want to get to the bottom, and there they are. You know, they're at it. When somebody's good, we'll let you hear it. But I want to ask you one question, and for the folks in the booth, it's full screen number 6. What's the best solution?
You know, I'd like to say that I'm the expert and I know the best solution here. And the fact of the matter is, we're in a global financial crisis that we have not seen since the Great Depression. And it's bigger now than then in many respects, because it's affecting many areas around the globe. GM did a lot of good things. They restructured. They started selling some cars in Latin America and selling some cars in Europe. But the problem is, Europe is having its own recession right now. And so there's no good answers. The fact of the matter is, though, that Continental went bankrupt and they're still operating. A lot of our airlines went bankrupt and they're still operating. The bankruptcy system does allow for companies to keep going, and I think the notion that people will quit buying cars because they're in bankruptcy is a big leap here. So it may be that they either need to do a loan with strings attached to it, with a restructuring plan attached to it, or let them go bankrupt.
Jim Lacamp from RBC Wealth Management. Jim, thank you.